The Geddon is here. The player base is outraged. Let's dive right in. Hey guys, welcome back to Casting Commons, the show where we talk and discuss all things Pauper. I am your host Teasdale, and this is my co-host, the Nadia's Nightblade himself, Reese.
Hello.
Didn't need to add an apostrophe. I'm going to say it.
Got to be correct.
Before we start, do not forget to hit that like, subscribe, and follow button so you never miss an upload. Also, give us 5-star rating on Spotify, as it really helps everything, basically. Just helps us. Makes us feel good as well. Before we dive right in, obviously, Geddon's been, so we will obviously be covering everything as normal, but we'll swiftly go through the challenges as and when, and still just cover some decks of interest and points to note, so we can focus on the Geddon. So do you want to cover what you've been up to? Anything exciting?
Yeah. A pretty sweet week for me, to be honest, with not just Magic, but just trading card games in general, I guess. My girlfriend's pretty into Lorcana, so I've been playing some Lorcana on the side as like a side game. And we had a draft this weekend, which I ended up winning, which was pretty cool. But then Magic-wise, I've been updating decks. Obviously to the sort of new meta versions. Like there's obviously some cards from Foundations. Red Green Ramp in particular has changed quite a bit. And Elves as well. I added the Dwinnings Elites to the Elves list I've got built up. So just keeping our sort of gauntlet up to date as I can keep it. I was thinking about updating the Terror to the Dragon Wings one, but I didn't quite go that far. I sort of looked at it and I was like, I still just like this list. So that didn't get updated, but yeah, all the other stuff got updated. And then playing wise, it was Dual Commander at our FNM, so I played in that as well. I built a Imska Iron Eater deck, which is like a big red-black guy with affinity, so it's right up my street basically. And ended up going 3-0 with that as well, which was pretty sick.
I was going to say, those are just a bunch of words that you're saying to me. I was like,
Yeah.
I have actually no idea what that is.
It's a big affinity guy that draws cards.
Well,
so
there you go.
It's pretty sick.
Just both things that you like, affinity and drawing cards.
Exactly. What about yourself? Have you chosen a deck for Nationals yet?
No. So, cut a long story short, I was 85% on Food Pestilence. I was like literally like almost there, as you're well aware. And then I thought, right, well, firing the test, even though I said I would never play a challenge. I was like, again, because the prizes suck and it's a waste of my entire life if you don't, top 8. So I was like, I'm not doing it. But I was like, right, I need to test this deck. And it literally shit itself. It was just not the deck I've been playing. Like, I've played 6 leagues with it, and the worst I've done was 1-3-2, and the rest were 4-1s. Like, obviously, the deck to me in playing it overperformed. And then I played it in the challenge, and I went 1-3 or something like that. Maybe 1-4. I actually can't remember. But to the point where I just, I timed out dropped because I said to Kirby I'd do the data for him. I got 2 matches in. I was like, I want to aggro drop this. So I was like, no, I might as well play it because I need to do the data thing. And then I lost again. I was like, screw this. I'm just not playing. I'll just do the data later. So that's basically how that went. And then I've now back to the drawing board almost. I've now got the choice of, I'd say I had the choice of 5 decks this morning. I had Black Green Glee or Jund Glee, like the Wildfireless Glee, like the Black Green Splash Red or whatever you want to call it. Then there's Blue Black Control with Pilfering, which Bako sent me. Then the Food Pest, just give it another go. Think it's obviously just shit on the day. Then I was Jund Wildfire and some other deck. Oh, Dredge. So they were the 5 decks. So I've sort of tested Black Green Glee and Jund Wildfire. So I've ruled out Jund Wildfire is definitely a no-go. That deck is just some clunky pile that I cannot play to save my life. No. Just no. So that's that. So I'm down to 4 decks. I'm sort of like, Glee's probably the one to pick because it's Glee, it's broken, it's busted. But but I really don't like playing Glee. It's so boring.
You don't have to click as much in person.
I know. True. It's not even that. The clicks, it's just boring. It's like Mugwort, but without the fun. Like, I don't know, I like the fun of Mugwort. It's like, you've got these, like, weird, intricate lines. It's like, oh, I'll blue scale, I'll protect it. Woo! I win. Or you lose because your combos in the bottom 20 cards of your deck. You're like, alright, okay, I lost anyways. Am I wrong? Yeah, exactly.
No
exactly. So, I'm down to 4 decks, is where I'm at. And I think I'm fine with that. But I'll narrow it down. Obviously, I have to narrow it down. I'll get a deck a day. Well, obviously, so for those that don't know, we have a local club. We obviously live around the corner from each other. Reese basically organises Magic events, runs and grows our Pauper community. I tell him he's doing a good job, pat him on the back and don't attend. He's basically what happens. So I've decided to come out of my little hidey hole because we're going to play Pauper on a Wednesday, do a final test. So I've decided to come out. I have still no idea what deck I need to play for that. But I'll decide by Wednesday. Wednesday will be my deciding day. I've decided.
So 5 o'clock on a Wednesday, I'll be scrambling around trying to build your deck. Is that where we're at?
No, I'll just send you 3 deck lists like Tuesday night.
So I'll be building 3 decks.
Yeah. I'll narrow it down to 3, and then I'll go from there. And then by Wednesday night, I'll have narrowed it down to 2, and I'll pick one to play on Wednesday, and then play the other one, obviously. It's the only explanation.
Yeah, it's hopefully you come to some consensus. The not doing great in the challenge is a bit of a downer, obviously, because you're fairly set on that list. Like, I feel like if you'd had like a reasonable result, even if you'd just like top 16 or something, you would have probably just, all right, I'll play this.
Yeah, 100%.
But yeah, the challenges as well, like, they are, I don't want to say they're like bad now. I still think they're like pretty good. Like, the reduction in the entry cost did make like some difference. But the fact that the prize cutoff is so awkward, like, if you 4-2, you can still like not get the same prizes as all the other 4-2s.
Yeah. So
and the gap between those prizes are like considerably worse. So like, it's on tiebreakers whether you top 16 or top 32 or whatever. Even if you've got the same result as like 9th place, you could get like half the prizes.
Yeah. So for example,
which isn't ideal, really.
For example, was it 4 weeks? It was the day daylight saving happened. I played Black Green Glee in the Friday challenge, and I lost round 1, and then I won like the next 3 or 4 on the belt end, and then lost the last round or something. No, I think I won the last round. It was the round before that, so it was round 5, and I ended up going 4-2. But because I lost round 1, my breakers were awful, horrendous. Absolutely awful, to the point where Baco, who I beat in the last round, I literally came the place above Baco, who ended up going 3-3. Yeah. Like, my breakers were that bad, I basically was right next to the person I beat. And that put me in... I missed... Obviously, I didn't get 9th, which was the last 4-2 slot. Didn't get 8th, the last 4-2 slot. I got all the way down, like, 20 summit, which actually then put me into the worst bracket. And then I basically ended up with half of my player points back for a 4-2. Yeah, which is wrong. Yeah. To me, it's just downright wrong. Like, you've effectively just wasted 6 hours of your life to not even get your player points back when you've went positive. Like, in a normal event, a 4-2 would basically get you at least your entry back in a tournament.
I do think it would be good if they're sort of results based, the non top 8.
Yeah, I think that's probably the way to do it.
For prizes, obviously the top 8 sort of is the same anyway. Like, if you're bottom 4, you get the same prize. If you're top 4, or first gets a prize, second gets a prize, and then 3rd and 4th get the same prize type thing.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
But if like every 4-2 got the same prize, I feel like that would be better than the sort of 9th to 16th, and then 16th to wherever the 4-2s end. Sometimes like mid-20s, like you say.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best way of doing it, is literally do top 8 this prize, and then everything else is record based. If you're 3-3, you get this. If you're 4-2, you get this.
Yeah.
Because the leagues do it, so why can't they do it in the challenge? It's no real different, and that's probably a way to fix the prize structure, to be honest. And it's the reason I won't play, because I'm not I'm not one that's going to sit there and play Grixis Affinity or Cold Oath or whatever. Half the time I play it for content or like playing Wild Wacky West. Like I accept I'm not going to win, but I'm going for like a 4-2 positive record, and so I'm not going to sit there and 4-2 and not get my player points back. So, but yeah, that's a bit of a tangent, but there you
go. Letting the side down after my decent result.
That was horrendous.
You can't drop.
Horrendous.
I guess touching on that, thank you to the Common Ground podcast for the shout out as well. It was much appreciated.
Even if they said your name wrong the first time, but you know.
They got it right eventually.
Yeah, that's all right.
Most Americans just say Reese wrong. Yeah. I feel like they've just not seen the word before.
Want to move on to some news?
Yeah, go for it.
So mainly, first one, obviously don't forget to follow us on Twitter at CastingCommons1 for all your Pauper lists and your retweets, etc. We are the hub for Pauper content, so please do check us out. I feel like, don't need to really say it, but obviously, as you are well aware, Nationals is this weekend and it is a sold-out event at 144. I do also want to apologise. I think I also lied to you effectively, because at time of recording last week, we had a ticket. By the time I uploaded it, it was sold again. So basically, it was pointless.
It's not surprising, to be fair.
They've been selling out like absolute wildfire. And I think they've still got like 48 on a waiting list as well. So, the other thing...
So what you're saying is we could have had a 200-person event if we'd had enough space?
Probably, yeah. Obviously, people are just excited to see Carl. That's obviously the only reason. Carl the best thing is it'll be Carl in his natural habitat. No content, no cameras. It'll just be him here to play probably Turbo Fog. Finally, the other thing obviously to mention is we decided to take matters in our own hands. If anyone has seen Take Me Out, the power is in our hands. We went on Magical Line Discord. You don't get that reference because you don't watch Heathen Telly. We went on the Magical Line Discord and we asked the question: what is happening with the 64 on Sunday? Obviously, they responded to Reese when he commented on Twitter that they would aggressively upgrade 32s to 64s if they consistently hit numbers. So we asked on, obviously, clarification on that. And the outcome was that they need around 80 players for 3 weeks. Obviously, there is other formats which do quite a lot bigger events, like obviously like the modern one obviously hits like 150 or whatever. I don't know what the numbers are for the 32s that are getting upgraded or whatever. But yeah, basically they said they need around 80 for 3 weeks consistently, and then they will look at changing it to a 64. So if, as a Pauper community, we want to make that movement happen, you know exactly what to do. Make it hit 80.
That's not happening. That's just sort of a we don't want to upgrade it number. Like to say, we'll be aggressively upgrading 32s to 64s if they reach the cap, and then to say, you need 80 players. Like, why? The 64 doesn't need 80 players. It needs 64.
Well, at least
it seems just like they don't want it to be a 64. But
I guess the thing is I don't know why it happens with Pauper in particular, especially the Sunday challenge. It seems to fall really. It's like consistently hits 60 plus, like 68, 65, whatever. It comes to 64. But then for some reason, whatever happens, it then gets madly affected by something. Daylight savings, it just doesn't fire. Like, where have these 65 players gone? Like, surely all of them didn't just think, I'll only open Magic Online at 2 o'clock. But
I guess it's a weird one. I don't really know how the timing works for elsewhere in the world, but for us, like, it's already a pretty late challenge, like UK wise. Like, you'll be up till like 2 a.m. So if it goes an hour one way, it either makes it much better or much worse. So I feel like if it's sort of similar elsewhere, or if it's like starts basically as people an hour after people finish work, but then it's moved back an hour, so it starts before people finish work. Like, I imagine that could affect it pretty badly with regards to the with regards to the like time. But yeah, it is a weird one because generally like we just hit like 64 plus players basically every week. Like unless like you say something happens like the football's on.
The football.
That was one of them, wasn't it? There was
Yeah.
some football match on and everyone just didn't play.
For reference, it was the World Cup final or something like that.
Oh,
Or
yeah,
Euros.
yeah, there you go.
Just that, you know. Anyways, let's move on to the Friday challenge. We obviously will sort of quickly cover the by default interesting things Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and go into detail on obviously Paupergeddon Rome.
Yeah, the one everyone wants to hear about.
Oh, yes.
But yeah, Friday the 22nd, 47 players. First place was Griggs Affinity, second was Guldortha, third Monoblue Fair, fourth was Stop Me Elves, fifth was Black Green Glee, sixth was Monoblue Terror, seventh was Jundglee, and eighth was Grixis Affinity. And then the near misses, ninth was Guldortha, and 10th was White Weenie. I guess initial sort of comments on this, we were very close to just having a completely unique top 8. The last 8th Grixis Affinity sort of spoiled that for us, unfortunately, but it is sweet to see. Yeah, it is sweet to see such like variety is still in the format and still doing well. Like top 8ing with just like 7 different decks is sick. It's really cool to see.
Yeah, definitely. To me, obviously, there's not like all these decks are pretty normal decks. Like obviously, none of these decks are all spicy. We've all seen them all before. My main thing to touch on is just small changes from like certain grinders. So like Luffy, who won, played Grixis Affinity, which he always plays, but decided to play 4 Frogmites and 2 Metallic Rebukes. Basically going back to sort of semi old schooly sort of thing with still the refurbs, which is pretty interesting.
Obviously, it doesn't have the 2/1 Death Touch guy that he's been playing.
Guild Swarm Prowler.
Yeah, they've gone for now. 4 Blood Fountain as well is like a pretty big statement to the like aggressive sort of slant that you get from playing the Frogmites and the Metallic Rebukes. It's like a turbo mode, I guess, for Grixis Affinity.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Like obviously the changes of like sort of coming, like the cast downs are gone, they're up to 4 blasts, and you know they're up to 11 deadly like draw spell effects, etc. Yeah, it's pretty sweet. Cool to see, but I also find it funny that they're still on the Hydro Beb plan. Like they've still got 5 Pyroblast, Red Elemental Blasts, 4 Blue Elemental Blasts effects. Yeah, pretty interesting, and obviously worked out for him for sure.
Yeah, it always works out for Luffy on Grixis Affinity.
Yeah, man could literally probably put like Spire Golem in his deck and it'd still win.
In terms of other stuff, like there's not really much that's that spicy. The elves list is just sort of the classic Stompy elves that we've seen. There's no Dwinnen's Elite in it as of yet. The Nick Norman list for the Black Green Glee, again, is basically what we're seeing as pretty much stock Black Green Glee. There's a one of Mez Fiend in the main, which is sort of not 100% common. Nubarola on Mono Blue Terror.
Just touching on the Nick Norman deck before we.
Yeah.
There's one Mortuary Maya in the deck, which is which is actually as odd as it looks. It's actually a pretty spicy sort of inclusion. Some black green lists have ran Evolution Witness as sort of a card that you can use to buy back your combo. But the thing I really like about the Mortuary Maya, it's a card that's low impact, like sort of like a bog, like just a tap land that'll occasionally like cause you issues, but generally be okay. But then the high roll of being able to literally hit back a Glee or a Nightblade into draw spell into win the game sort of thing is really cool. And I really like the fact that you've effectively took up that card with a land. Like you've took up that Evolution Witness slot that you could consider with a land, which is great. Pretty cool to see.
Yeah, I was going to say that it's the classic sort of limited thing is if you can replace a card with a land or a land with a card, that's ideally what you want to be doing, and it's sort of removed that Evil Witness slot that's sort of a bit clunky and just turned a swamp into it, which is ideal, really.
Yeah.
The 6th place list, the Mono Blue Terror from Nubarola, is quite an interesting or different, I guess, take on Mono Blue Terror. It's really removal heavy, with 2 extra Echo and Truths in the main deck. but has then cut down on like the bomb snake threats by going to 3 serpents in favour of a murmur mystic 1-of as well. So yeah, an interesting way to take it, I guess. Echo and Truth, is it needed now? Do you need just more interaction for these Glee decks? Obviously it's got a lot of upside against Kuldotha and stuff like that as well. But yeah, Terra still evolving, even though like 80% of the cards are always the same.
Yeah.
Any other lists you want to touch on?
No, I don't think so. I guess touch on Jund Glee just slightly. Obviously, it is a wildfire build, which I guess sort of semi-relevant with obviously what we'll talk about later. But one thing that I've noticed, there's a lot of sandstorms in the sideboard of Glee in general, which I get to an extent, because obviously you want more Kuldotha hit or something, like that sort of like aggro hit. But I also find it really weird, because like Black Rain will play like 4 drowns, and then 2 sandstorms, and then Jund will play an amount of breath weapons, and then an amount of sandstorms, and I feel like it's just overkill. Especially along with 4 weathers too, which is in most of the Glee decks is pretty much always a 4 of.
And Cracklands in the main as well.
Yeah, and Cracklands in this because it's Wildfire Jund, yeah. It just seems like overkill.
It is an odd one. Like, I do think Kuldotha is obviously not a great matchup for Glee, but I don't think it's like abysmal. I think it's just like Kuldotha's advantage, but that's about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it does seem like a lot of cards
I'd say
for that matchup.
Especially Jund Glee as well, with obviously all the tap lands and the clunkiness. I'd say it's definitely, as you say, it's not abysmal, but it can definitely happen that way, and it's just, I don't think you need this much sideboard cards for Kuldotha.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, so I guess moving on to the Saturday, Saturday the 23rd, 45 players. First place, Black Green Glee. Second place was White Weenie. Third and fourth were both Kuldotha. Fifth was Mono Blue Terror. Sixth was Mono Blue Fae. Seventh was another copy of Black Green Glee, and eighth was another copy of Kuldotha. And then the near misses, ninth was a Mardu Wildfire, which is a spicy one. And 10th is Jund Glee. Yeah, less variety than the Friday. So there's still a decent bit of variety there, just sort of skewed to Kuldotha and Black Green Glee, or Glee in general, with the Jund Glee in 10th, I guess. But sweet to see, obviously, White Weenie with the same pilot as well, getting up there, so back-to-back top 10s. And a Mardu Wildfire pile, which we do like to see our wildfire piles at the moment. Is there any decks you want to touch on before we look at this Wildfire deck?
The only thing to note is obviously the 2 Glee decks look based off Nick Norman's list, both Baco's 7th place and the winning list, with the Mortuary. I don't know if they're exact lists. I could look, but I'm not going to lie, as I can't be bothered to click back on the link. But yeah, they look pretty much identical, if not they are the...
Baco doesn't have the Mortuary Maya, but the rest of the list is basically the same.
I feel like, did Baco go up to 4 safekeepings and then had this extra duress in the side, I think I remember seeing. Yeah, so they can go up to 4 safekeeping, 4 duress, if needed. Decided again that Sandstorm is overkill and only have the 4 drown, 4 weather. But other than that, that's pretty much all I want to mention, just that they are sort of slightly different.
Yeah, the first place list looks very much like Nick Norman's, at least the main deck. The sideboard, I think there's an extra Sandstorm in it and a 1 less Drowning Sorrow, but that's about it.
I see.
Yeah, so Mardu Wildfire, I don't think that was on our bingo card for the next Wildfire pile that we would see. But it's definitely a sweet one. Obviously, red for Wildfire, Galblast, and Crackland Shaman is the pretty basic. I'm playing a Wildfire pile. Black, Deadly Dispute, sort of the auto include, along with Blood Fountain, and then your artifacts of choice to sacrifice, this time being Synth. And then white for the sort of Glinthawk core Skyfisher engine to go with those synths.
So obviously this deck, like, is in Mardu Wildfire. Like, I've played it a bit previously before Modern Horizons. Hyson obviously invented the deck, and it was that horrendous pile with like Navigator's Compass. obviously having refurb has definitely made the deck better. The thing that I do like about this is most Mardu lists nowadays run the more like a black white blade, so they're running like a Titan blade, and then have the red in for wildfire, which then makes it really awkward because you're splashing the thing that you use to ramp and synth. Like it felt really clunky. But the thing that I really do like about this list, it's more like a Boros shell that's then suited the black cards with Deadly Dispute and Refurb. So it sort of makes it feel a lot better without the Titan Blade, in all honesty. And I really do like the look of this list. The list looks really good. Maybe I might go back to 5 decks I could possibly play on the side.
Oh no. Yeah, I think it's an interesting one with the Titan Blade because obviously we've got 4 cast downs in here. The Titan Blade would slot into that slot really well. And obviously you've got the big synergy with obviously Deadly Dispute, Refurbished Familiar, Crackland, and your 2 bounce guys. But Titan Blade's just so bad right now.
Yep.
And you need spot removal for the Glee decks, so it sort of just doesn't work. Like it doesn't make sense to play that at the moment, even though it would work really well in this list. Obviously you've got the 4 Gal Blast, but yeah, 4 cast downs on top of that means you have actually got game against the Glee decks. Sideboard wise, for Arashing Cleric makes me think the Kuldotha matchup is very suspect.
It wasn't great in Swifty days.
And
I can't imagine it's...
Hence the 4 Navigator's Compass that used to be there.
Well, your mana also sucked as well.
Yeah.
But I also do think, in all honesty, looking at the Arashing Cleric, I do actually think it probably should be Navigator's Compass, in all honesty. You do, obviously, you lose the body. Like, the body is obviously a 1/3 is fairly relevant against Kuldotha. But the fact that you basically just half the amount of bounce you get is pretty awkward. For me, I'd probably be on 4 Navigator's Compass if I was looking at this, because you want just the synergy with the Glint Hawker and Core Skyfisher, and just hope Crackland Toxin sort of like fixes the rest of it. Is probably
and
where
just sort of the upside of making your refurbs cheaper, making your Cracklands work harder.
Yeah.
Obviously, you mentioned bouncing with Glint Hawk, but then fixing your mana as well. It does make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
The body is nice, but yeah,
I don't think it's key.
I sort of agree that it should at least be a consideration to play Compass, if not the correct choice. But it's a very weird card, Compass. So I feel like it's not a thing you would automatically go to in that slot.
Yeah, true. But I think that's obviously with the previous Heisen build. I think like the power level of Compass can carry definitely a Kuldotha matchup. Like your key for Kuldotha is pretty much bouncing that Navigator's Compass as much as you can. Well, it was pre-Modern Horizons 3 anyways.
Definitely helps.
Yes.
Anything else you want to touch on these lists before we move on to Sunday?
Just the only passing comment is obviously the lack of Dust to Dust in this sideboard for the Mardu deck. It's got 2 Revokes and 2 Gorilla Shamans, which might be fine for Affinity, but I do know the big key for the deck previously was Omen of the Dead. Omen of the Dead was crucial, obviously, with the Core Skyfisher grinding. This has opted out for that and got 2 Blood Fountains instead. So I wonder if you can't grind and you know, like, I think because of that the grind can kind of go. So then maybe you need Dust to Dust, if you know what I mean. But that's just my initial looking on it. I would have to play it, obviously. I do know, obviously, white, it can be quite hard to be casted in complete multiples because you want to focus on synth bouncing, but...
Yeah. I think it's a weird one at the moment. Dust to Dust sort of went from everywhere to nowhere in like a few months. It's essentially like the only deck that plays it now is White Weenie. So Affinity sort of just lost that risk. Like there's not as much just I'm just gonna get Dust to Dusted on turn 3 and lose 2 lands.
I must admit that's probably how I ended up winning quite a lot with Pestilence with Affinity. Like I literally was just like Dust to Dust and then draw a bunch of cards 3 turns later, Dust to Dust you again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely a thing. I think they are obviously a bit less prepared for it at the moment as well. Obviously we've seen on the Friday them adding back in the counterspell for Mana League.
Metallic Rebuke.
Metallic Rebukes, which were added initially to fight the Dust to Dusts. But in general, they don't really play counter spells. They don't really play Metallic Rebukes at all anymore. Basically, because there just is no Dust to Dusts.
Yeah.
Like you might run into one of the 2 white weenie pilots, but that's about it. So yeah, I guess if you could justify the Dust to Dust, it would be a big addition to this deck. It would give it a lot of game against Affinity that Affinity really isn't prepared for at the moment. But yeah, the casting it doesn't look
the greatest.
Amazing. Yeah.
No, it does not. Looks like a struggle.
But yeah, moving on to Sunday.
Just to one last note, Wildfire was in 10th. Wildfire Jund was in 10th. Just to keep the numbers going for the Jund, which will be important for Paupergeddon. That was all.
So Sunday the 24th, 65 players. So we've hit more than 64 players again, but we're not allowed until we hit 80.
No.
First place, Grix Affinity. Second place, Blue Black Fair. Third place, another copy of Blue Black Fair.
What?
Fourth place, Jund Glee. Fifth, Black Green Glee. Sixth, Black Green Fog. Seventh, Mono Blue Terror. And eighth, Red Green Ramp. And then the 2 near misses. Ninth was another copy of Black Green Glee, and 10th was Kuldotha. Once again, Luffy just winning with Affinity, as he seems to do basically every other challenge. As for sort of the rest of the top 8, it's sort of the usual suspects, but then Black Green Fog and Blue Black Fair just like appearing from nowhere. I think the Friday and the Saturday had like 0 pilots on Blue Black Fair, and even the Sunday, I think was this the only 2 pilots.
Yeah.
And they come second and third. So Black Blue Fair
Black.
in a weird place where no one's playing it, but then it just comes second and third for the only 2 people playing it.
Yeah, I think it's really. I think to be fair, like Fair's in a surprisingly good position. Like, obviously did well in what we'll cover next, and then but also Snuff Out's also pretty good against Glee.
Yeah.
So.
And Spellstutter Sprite is also.
And also Spellstutter Sprite is just generally good, particularly good against Glee, but also really good in general. I think they were on a pretty similar list. Like nothing too out of the question, right?
No, there's an arms in the main, which is not unheard of, but it's not usual, I would say. Bomb wise, it seems pretty normal with a Murmur Mystic, a Gurmag, and then a couple of Thorns.
Yeah.
The second place one was GN as well, for what it's worth, and third was Out of Zero. Both obviously names and people we see often.
Yeah.
List wise, they are very similar lists.
I think they're almost.
Out of Zero's got an Agony Warp instead of an Extractor Confession from GN.
Right, yeah.
But basically, from what I can tell, they're very similar. Apart from that, I think GN's got an extra cast down instead of a spell piece.
Exciting.
Yeah. Blue-black doing blue-black things.
Just to touch on Luffy's list, he decided to sack off the 4 Blood Fountain Frogmite pile and go back to sort of normal. But actually went even further back and went pre-Guild Swan Prowler too.
I wonder if he's just got like a load of Affinity decks saved on Magic Online and he just clicks one.
Yeah, he rolls the dice.
I'll click that one today. It doesn't really matter. 90% of the decks are saved, it'll be fine.
Doesn't matter, I'll win anyways.
The deck I was most interested to talk about is the 8th place Red Green Ramp list. As I sort of mentioned at the start, Red Green Ramp's like changed quite a lot. From firstly from Ponza to like the Ponza-less Red Green Ramp build, and then from that is changed even more. To the point where we've got no Altasaurs anymore. It's just not a thing. There's no Lord of the Rings land cyclers, no Ents, no Oliphants. There's no dual land. We're just straight up 13 forests, 3 mountains, like the most basic land base you could ask for.
No pun intended.
And yeah, basically just maximizing this 1 mana ramp package with the 4 Arbor Elves, 4 Utopia Spells, 4 Wild Growths. Hoping you start with one of those and one of your 13 forests. And then, yeah, just jamming bombs. Down to 3 boarding parties, so the Cascade's like super limited now. 4 Bannerhide Krushok, which is something we have seen sort of creeping in, which is a 4 mana 4/4 trample from Modern Horizons, that you can basically pay 2 and discard it to put 2 counters on something, or I guess pay 5 and double green to exile it from your graveyard and put 4 counters on something. So it's either an early buff on a guy, a reasonable just like 4 mana 4/4 trample, and you get value out of it late. So just like a super like all rounder. Like it's not amazing. None of these mods are amazing, but them all sort of stapled on the one card seems really good.
Yeah, it's effectively a combat trick, obviously with the reinforce, which is quite nice on a trampler. Yeah. But then it's also like your Altar Sword putting 4 counters on a guy late game. But then it's also just if you've got the nuts of the Arbor Elf and Wild Growth effect, it's just like another Chrysalis effectively. Just a turn 2 4/4.
Turn 2.
Turn 2 4/4 trample. Easy enough.
And then alongside that, obviously we've gone to 4 Eldrazi Repurposer, which is pretty mainstay, but back on 4 Jewel Thief, which is something we sort of haven't seen for quite a while.
Yeah.
I think the big game, and I guess 4 Nyxborn Hydra, which is sort of the mainstay now.
Yep.
Cutting down on the Cascades to make that card better and not as much of a liability.
Yep.
The biggest gain I think for this deck is just there's more trample. Like you've lost the Altar Swords, but you've now got the 4 Krushoks with trample. You've got the 4 Avenging Hunters still with trample. You've got the 4 Jewel Thieves with trample, and the 4 Hydras that grant trample and have trample. Because a lot of the time they're just post Ponza but pre this lists. We're just like getting stuck on stall boards all the time. Like you'd have massive guys, and then they'll just be getting trumped by spawn tokens.
I think the big thing about this list for me is that it's not only just more trample, but it's more ways to make your other guys better. Like you've got 4 Krushoks and 4 Nyxborn Hydra. Like you've basically built your deck around Nyxborn, making it the fact that you make all your guys better. Like you could literally just kill people with a spawn.
And I think that's the thing where the Krushok looks sort of so average, but it excels in the fact that it is sort of like a bit of an Nyxborn Hydra late. Like if you've got a Jewel Thief, you can just chunk 2 counters on it next turn, put 4 more counters on it, and it's just a Nyxborn guy that has trample.
Yep.
It's quite a cool direction that we don't really see in Pauper. Just I'm gonna jam my bombs as fast as possible and attack you.
Yeah.
It reminds me quite a bit of like the old like monogreen stompy lists where you just like ramp out 1 mana 3/3s and stuff like that and go to town.
Yeah. No, it's definitely sweet.
Spell wise, 4 Malevolent Rumble's sort of a mainstay. And then a 1/of Ram Through, which is quite a sort of sweet addition. It's instead of like, I guess, the Scred slot or the some sort of interaction slot, but as a lot of you guys are pretty big and have trample, it's sort of a pretty cool spell to have in there.
Yeah, the only one which obviously we've sort of seen dabbled in and out is is it the new Bushwhack downshifted card? Like obviously that dabbles in and out. Obviously we've seen Stompy call it the Green Lorien revealed, which is a pretty nice one.
Sort of, sort of.
I can take that. Which would be interesting, and I guess that's the only room for, I wouldn't even say improvement, but the room for flexibility for this particular list for me is literally the Ram Through versus Bushwhack. Do you want that early make your mana better plus your worse fight effect, or do you want that extra fight effect that just when you are winning you go ham? Like it literally can effectively give a double strike card a trample card double striking effect in a weird way.
Sideboard wise, it is very much I'm scared of Glee, I'm scared of Kuldotha, which is not really an ideal place to be in this meta at the moment, but if you can get there, good on you. 3 Vines, sort of protection and Glee interaction. 3 Sealer Fires, sort of the most basic like Glee interaction, and a Hissing Iguana, which is something we sort of see now and again. Was it Walker who put these in initially? it's a 3-mana 3/1. That whenever another creature dies, it deals 1 damage to target player or planeswalker. So if they try and combo off through it, they just get pinged to death, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Then on the red side, there's 4 sandstorms, as many as 4, and 3 Nihilius disciples. So again, very, very much Glee red focus sideboard, and then there's a 1 of Flare and Pain for, I guess, if you play against green black fog.
And strands as well.
There's no core gates anymore. Yeah, I guess White Weenie.
Mm.
Although you've probably got a pretty fine White Weenie matchup with your turn 2 4/4 tramples.
Maybe. The thing that does also, like, it also fixes, the good thing to note for me is the vines. Fixes a lot of other issues as well, like Crackle and Charm and Toxin Analysis. Obviously being able to vines that Crackle and Charm in response to a Toxin.
Yeah.
Just like that is a lot of decks, like Jund Wildfire, for example. That is your game plan against red green, and same with Jund Glee. Like that's your game plan, is either combo off or Crackle and Charm and Toxin Analysis.
Yeah.
Like that fixes that problem to the point where you can easily just half their clock.
I mean, they'll have to go pretty ham on the Crackle and Charm to kill stuff if it doesn't have a Toxin on it, which essentially ends their game anyway.
Exactly.
A cool one to see. And I guess the last thing to touch on with these sideboard cards, they're a lot more reasonable than they would have been previously, because you're not really cascading into them. Like, you're not cascading into vines, you're not cascading into sandstorms, so you can play them, basically.
Yeah. Pretty sweet. I really like this take on the deck. And I wouldn't be surprised even if people went even lower on Board and Party, to be honest.
I guess it's just having a threat that replaces that at this point. Like,
yeah, for sure.
If there's something good enough.
Someone will find it, don't worry.
Anything else you want to touch on in this challenge before we look at Paupergeddon?
Was it the Jund? Was it Jund Glee in 4th? The Jund Glee in 4th was not Wildfire. Is it? That's all I got.
So basically 50-50 split on if you play Jund or if you play Jund with Wildfires.
Well, at the moment it's like 2-1, right? Is it?
Yeah.
At the moment. Well, there you go. But anyways, would you like to move on to the Paupergeddon top 8?
Yeah, so the sweet tournament that we've all been waiting for on the 23rd and 24th of November with, I believe, 690 players.
Before we start, do we want to shout out for the coverage? Sorry.
Yeah, go for it.
But for reference, the coverage was 2 people in the booth. Apologies, I can't remember the names off the top of my head. And then there was 2 remote content creators, which was Calicais and Kirblinxy, who both did from remote. And start to finish, the commentating, it got to the point where the commentary was actually that good. Like, I was busy on the Saturday. I literally watched the whole commentary on Saturday night on VOD. Like, I already knew like most of the record because I caught the end, but I just went back and watched it. Yeah. The actual gameplay and the commentary on the gameplay was fantastic. The bouncing off the remote and the in person commentators was great. The game knowledge from everyone talking about the gameplay was actually incredible, to the point where you got in detail plays that you, even if you were half watching, you could follow and understand the intricate lines that was going on in between each game. They're like, right, they could do this because of this, they could do that because of that. And you could just tell that every single person in that booth, remote or not remote, live and breathes Pauper. It was great.
Yeah.
Like, it was outstanding. Cannot fault it for a second.
Obviously, we're biased speaking English and not really understanding much Italian.
Yeah, and that too.
Like the Italian coverage of years gone by might have been as good as this, but we had no idea.
Yeah.
But yeah, the coverage was exceptional. Even to the point where I was watching the top 8 and there was like over 1,000 people watching on Twitch. So we're like getting back to like old school GP sort of size coverage. Yeah. Which is really great, especially for Pauper. It's a fantastic thing for us to have.
100%.
And hopefully they keep it up, and the next one, hopefully they sort of go a similar way, because it was really good.
Hands down.
Sorry. So yeah, 690 players. I believe usually the numbers are sort of a bit iffy. So it might be 695. I think that's what happened last time. But yeah, the top 8. First place was Jund Glee. Second place was Jund Glee with Wildfire. Third place was Dredge. Fourth place was Monoblue Fair. Fifth place was Jund Glee with Wildfire. Sixth place was Jund Wildfire without Glee. Seventh was Monoblue Terror, and eighth was Green Black Glee. And then I guess going into the top 16, because it was such a big event and we've got the data, the 9th and 10th place were both Jund Glee. The 11th was Jund Glee with Wildfire. 12th was Blue Black Fair. 13th was Monoblue Terror. 14th was Green Black Glee. 15th was Grixis Affinity, and 16th was Green Black Glee. I guess initial thoughts, it's sweet to see Dredge really high up in the top 8 once again. The deck just seems to like spike these really big tournaments, and it makes me happy every time I see it there. Mono Blue Fair as well, sort of making this comeback. We've seen it a lot in this week's challenges as well. I think on the Sunday it was like the second most played deck. And I believe on the Friday it was like the 4th or 5th most played deck. And then to come fourth in such a huge tournament, again, really cool. And then Jund Wildfire, we're loving these different non-Jeskai Wildfire piles at the moment. And it's not a new deck, Jund Wildfire, but I guess it's sort of a quite hyped returning deck that we've seen like over the last few weeks. So it's cool to see that perform really well as well. The elephant in the room, it was definitely the time to be on a Glee deck. 9 Glee decks in the top 16, basically equally split between Jund Wildfire and Green Black. Is not ideal at a nearly 700 player event. You don't really want essentially one archetype. It is 3 different decks, but it's the same. I would argue the same archetype.
Yeah.
As basically more than half of your top 16 is not great.
To touch on it even more, so it's also not like it wasn't like the most played deck either. Like combined, like I think if you combined,
it was quite highly played though. I think the third most played deck was Jund Glee.
Yeah, so the third most played deck was Jund Glee, and if you combined them, it was second most played deck. I think Grixis Affinity from memory was first, and then Kuldotha was second, right? But obviously the Jund Glee was combined. Like you don't know if that was the sort of black green-esque non-wildfire deck version that splashes red, or if it was the wildfire list, which is more of a mid-rangey deck, because they're all just combined together. But yeah, so it wasn't the most played deck, but I can't even. We do have the stats as well for day 2, right? So and it wasn't. I don't even think it again was the most converted deck, right? So I don't think.
I'm not sure.
I'm gonna scroll up our conversation quickly to see if we.
I guess regarding sort of the difference between the like column 1 Jund basically splashing the red and the other one the wildfire list, they're not really that different. Like the only red cards the wildfire one plays in addition is sort of the wildfire.
Yeah.
That's basically it. They both just play 4 Chrysalis, 1 or 2 makeshift munitions, and then either one plays 4 wildfire or it doesn't.
I guess,
but yeah, like the actual red sources are pretty limited in the non-wildfire list because you essentially just need 1, and you don't have all the dual lands, so you just play mana gates or some sort of like other fixing where you can sometimes have it on red if you want it on red.
I think the other one is the potential for Crackland as well. It's probably more like obviously in the second place list where obviously doesn't run it. No. But obviously previously, like in the wildfire builds, they generally do.
Yeah, the 5th place list does run Crackland as well. You are right there, to be fair.
I have found it. Yeah, so it did actually have Jund Glee, had the highest conversion rate, right? 5%. There was 64 pilots day 1, and then that was 23 day 2. There was 91 Kuldotha and 101 Grixis Affinity, which then went to 21 Grixis and 22 Kuldotha and 23 Jund. So it's like it's the highest, but also it was the highest day 2 conversion with the lowest out of the 3 day 1 representation.
I guess that's the sort of sticking point. Is it's one of the top 3 most played decks, and it had the highest conversion rate.
Yeah.
Which is never a great combo, really.
No.
The obvious, like, the advantage, I guess, to the Jund list over the black green list, and probably why it is doing so much better, is Riven Chrysalis in particular is just literally the ultimate backup plan. Like, the card is so good just on its own. Like, you don't need to add anything to it. You just cast a Chrysalis and it can basically win the game by itself. Black green just doesn't have that. You're all in on this combo, winning you the game. You're not really gonna beat down with Shambling Ghasts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that is the advantage over the Jund one. It's why basically the Jund one is more played and has a better conversion rate than the black green. But obviously the combo is strong enough that it can carry both decks.
Also,
pretty hard.
Just to add to that as well, it's not only just it's good on its own, it also works. Obviously, it obviously works well with its combo. Like, it's a win con in the sense that it goes infinite with your combo. It makes spawns, which then makes your combo cheaper, or like less to do, or more interaction, or whatever you want to, or whatever you want to say to that. Like,
and gives you more mana to combo.
And gives you more mana to combo. Like, it does everything.
Yeah.
So,
I guess touching on the finals, was quite funny because obviously it was a Jund Glee mirror. I was watching it on the big telly with my girlfriend, and basically one of them comboed on turn 3, and she was like, "Oh, what's happened? Why is it finished?" I was like, "Oh, well, he just comboed." And coming from Lorcana, she was like, "Well, how can you just deal 20 in one go?" I was like, "Oh, just how this works." And then the third game, they just comboed on turn 3 again.
Well, to be fair,
or maybe turn 4.
It was turn 4. They did have turn 3, but the opponent had the duress.
Yeah.
To take the Glee, so it was a turn later when they then played something sadistically and then played something deadly disputed and then sadistically, right?
Yeah. So it wasn't the most hype finals I've ever watched. Like, it was quite anticlimactic. Like, I'm not sure on the time, but I can't imagine it was very long. It didn't feel like a very long watch. So yeah, it is it is what it is for now. I don't think there's going to be any changes from the PFP imminently. Hopefully they'll see these results and discuss it. But I think sort of the sticking points are there's still a lot of diversity around the Glee decks. Although there's a lot of Glee in this top 16. Around it, there's still decks doing really well, like Dredge, Mono Blue Fair, obviously Blue Black Fair, Mono Blue Terra, and Grixis Affinity all did really well in this event as well as the Jund Wildfire. There is also diversity between the Glee decks. Like, although we've got 9 Glee decks, it's sort of 3-3-3 because there's 3 green black, there's 3 Jund, and there's 3 Jund Wildfire. The green black is obviously quite different from the other 6, but even the Wildfire lists are like 10 to 20 cards different because obviously you've got the mana base is different as well. So there is the diversity there. And I guess the combo in general, it's not like Chatterstorm. It's not like first day class Chatterstorm was. It's not like Temporal Fissure was. It's not like Cloudpost was. It's easy to interact with if you have the cards. Obviously, they've got protection, like they can protect it, but it's essentially a lightning bolt away from being stopped, a duress away from not going off that turn, or a counter spell. Like, a lot of the time, one card will stop it for a while, or at least a turn, as we've seen in the final match. The duress essentially stopped it being a turn 3 loss.
They die the turn later.
Yeah, that is the downside of the interaction can stall it, but they could also just draw the piece again and combo you basically immediately.
My only 2 things on some of those points, not to be negative Nancy, or let's say we'll be what's the phrase, like, to be like a devil on your shoulder, to be a devil's advocate, that's the word. So the one thing, going on the Glee numbers, Like obviously you're saying that the 333, which is
Yeah, yeah,
obviously, it is true they are very different decks. Like Jund Wildfire is a mid range deck that has the combo in. Like I do get behind that, but in a sense, the fact that the combo itself is so good in so many different shells can potentially look like that's a problem. Like the fact that it
yeah,
goes in
yeah.
everything. Like yes, they are all different versions. They are all very different decks. Like I 100% agree with you, but it's also worrying that three different versions of the deck can all do incredibly well. Like all three of them have top eighted.
Yeah. And I think ultimately that is the main issue with the combo is it's so low to the ground and
Mm.
it's so easy to slot
Yeah.
into things like we've seen Green Black Fog with just
Mm.
Glee combo in the sideboard. Um, if like the Brood Scale had cost 2 and a green, we probably wouldn't be having this discussion really.
Mm.
Um, I think obviously it's a lot more mana to go off.
Mm.
And a lot clunkier, so you probably won't see it in sideboards. You probably wouldn't really see the green black list.
Mm.
Because that list is essentially super low to the ground. If you're starting to play like 3 mana cards to make it work,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
gone. You're not going to win in time.
And
Um,
and then my next point was obviously it's a really strange one, which really is like the thing. It's the one thing that I think made me under-evaluate Brood Scale, because obviously when it was first spawned, I'm assuming 99% of people did, as obviously the meme of the short, like this is getting banned, that meme that's everywhere. Um, the deck, it's a creature that dies to stuff out. It dies to everything. It's so easy to interact with, but the color combination is so easy to protect in the same instance. At the
yeah,
same instant, like that's the thing that's like crazy. It's so easy to
yeah,
deal when you think, right, it's alright, dice for lightning bolt, dice for Galv Blast, dice for stuff out. Half the time they'll go Duress, Mesfiend, safe keep, and I got you anyways. Get wrecked. Sort of thing.
yeah.
That's also the thing that's really annoying. Is it is in theory you look at it's like I'll pack 8 removal spells. I've got this, and then they're just like safe keep, and we got you.
I guess that's the difference between us when we both seen that spoiler. I was like, oh, have you seen this combo? Like, it's pretty nuts. You're like, nah, that'll be bad. And
Yeah.
I just was like, I'll buy 4 Glees now.
I think to be fair, it is a combo that like it's so cheap, it's so easy, but it does.
Yeah,
It's
that's
like
the big thing.
99% of the time as well. Like most creature combos are pretty poor,
Mm.
like because they are so easy to interact with. But the color combination that it naturally pulls you in over the years, it's just got so much protection naturally that it's just so easy. So easy to
I
play.
think the thing with the brood scale just being like a
So
reasonable-ish guy by
yeah.
itself as well. Like it's the entire combo is so cheap.
Mm.
The bad combo piece is just like a 1 mana card. Like you're
Mm.
not that fussed
Yeah, yeah,
if you don't find it.
yeah.
Whereas the brood scale's just like it's a reasonable threat. Like it's a 2 mana guy that you can pump up and make an extra guy and make some mana.
Mm.
Um, yeah, it'll be interesting to see if anything comes of this.
Mm.
As I say, like Glee, the actual combo is an issue. Well, is it an issue? It could be an issue. It could be
Yeah.
perceived as an issue.
Mm.
Chrysalis as a card by itself could also be perceived as an issue. Like it's probably one of the most played cards in this top 8. But one card that's sort of flying under the radar and that has basically been ridiculously good since it was added to the format and is never really discussed
Mm.
is Deadly Dispute. I believe in the top 32 decks, it was in 23 of those decks.
Yeah.
Like going through the top 8, obviously it's not in Dredge and Mono Blue, Mono Blue Fair and Mono Blue Terror. It's in the other 5 decks in the top 8. And then in the top 16, it's in 9th, 10th, 11th, 14th, 15th, and 16th. So there's 5 decks in the top 16 that don't play Deadly Dispute.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them's like a super weird Dredge deck, and the others are blue decks.
Yeah.
That play Brainstorm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's another sort of piece to that puzzle is if you take away Deadly Dispute, is the Glee combo a problem? You're also able to check affinity, which people have said is a problem for a long time. but then you do have the sort of downside of damaging like the other less, I guess, less tier 1 lists that play Deadly Dispute, things like Gardens, for example, that people wouldn't say it needs anything banned from.
And just to also note, there's basically one, two. I'm scrolling for a little bit. Scrolling 3, 4, 5. Is that 5 decks not in the top 16 to 32 that don't have it as well? And that is 3 Kuldotha, a Corgate, and a Dredge. The rest are all actual black-green X decks. Black-green or black-green red. Every single one of them.
What's this in the top 32? Sorry.
16 to 32, yeah.
Yeah.
So it is literally. I think I was recording yesterday, and I think I mulled to 5 once and kept an Ico Wellspring Deadly Dispute or whatever. I was like, it's alright. It's the glue that holds this format together.
Yeah, it's definitely made black basically, if not the best, like tied for the best color in Pauper. There's a reason that all the decks are X plus black, X plus Deadly Dispute package.
Yeah. And then obviously you could go into the removal after that as well, which is also incredibly good in black. Like Snuff Out obviously is by far an incredibly powerful card. Looking on quickly onto the lists as well, like the actual lists. The first place list, just to touch on it, was a normal black-green, well I said normal, non-wildfire Glee deck. Jund build, sorry. And it ran 4 Mana Gates and a Thriving Grove, which was basically their way of splashing, all green based, which is interesting because obviously green's the most important colour for comboing. Yep. And then it lets them splash the red and the black obviously off them, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah. I guess in addition to that, there's also 4 Twisting Landscapes and a Singleton Mountain.
Yeah.
So you do have a lot of red sources, but just for essentially 1 pip.
Yep. And then the red in the main deck is basically for 4 Riven Chrysalis and makeshift munitions, right?
Yeah.
And then essentially the thing that I also find interesting is their main deck and a Troublemaker oof, which I believe they said in their interview was because they needed more sideboard slots, and they were like, that card's good enough to main.
Fair? I think when you look at the sideboard, it does just look like it wants to be 4 Troublemaker oofs.
Yeah.
Which makes a lot of sense to like squeeze it in the main to fit the rest of it in. The sideboard is 4 Snuff Outs, 4 Breath Weapons, 4 Weather the Storms, and then 3 Troublemaker oofs.
Yeah.
So basically Kuldotha here, Glee here, and then some oofs for affinity.
Pretty much. Which is pretty interesting, to be fair. Not the and I think Troublemaker without the sideboard cards makes the most sense. It has the most splash damage, like across obviously wildfire piles, etc. But then also if it's not relevant, you can easily just, I think, which is what they did in game 3, right? They played a Troublemaker Roof and then just sacked it to start the combo. And
yeah, it did also. He did an interview before the top 8 or during the top 8. I can't really remember. And Kirby basically asked if I think it was Kirby, asked if the oof had won any games. It might have been Callie actually, asked if the oof had won any games. And he said, yeah, like the oof in the main had won him a game against Affinity or something. So it does just do like a lot of random stuff that is relevant. And then worst case, you can just sack it to a Deadly Dispute.
Or attack for 2. That was pretty much the one thing that interested me. The second place list didn't seem too out of the ordinary for what I would say is Jund, Glee,
I guess
Lego Wildfire
the main
pile.
thing is it doesn't run Crackland Shamans.
Yeah, that was going to say.
Which is the sort of standout.
That's one of the big things is, that it doesn't run Crackland Shamans. It's got 2 Evolution Witness, which is fairly normal. But they are often for Chromatic Star over Blood Fountain. Sort of slot, which is also not out of the ordinary. You can sort of, if you have Glee, the Glee combo plus an extra Glee with Evolution Witness and a star, you can sort of cycle. You can cycle the star, draw your deck. So I'm not surprised that it's sort of there.
Yeah, I think with the Evo Witness as well, like the Blood Fountain is not as needed. in general, like just the get back stuff. And like you say, you've got a lot more value of having stars.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing that I've noticed for this sort of Jund Wildfire version of Glee, is that they've basically went, I'm still gonna combo, but my backup plan is a Chrysalis and an Evo Witness being good cards. As opposed to using Blood Fountain and Evo to sort of like loop themselves to outgrind
Like
your opponent.
combo,
Yeah, to like outgrind your opponent and just I'll whittle you down until I actually do combo you. Like losing that is probably beneficial for the deck.
Yeah.
Which is pretty sweet.
Funnily, like the sideboard is exactly the same as the first place list. Which is quite funny. I don't know if that's like a common theme among the Glee decks. Like these are basically the 4 sideboard cards you need, and that's just you display the max of all that you can fit in.
The sideboard is almost the same for the 5th place Jungly deck. It's got 4 weathers. It's cut down a breath weapon and a snuff to play 2 duresses because it's cut a duress from the main.
Yeah.
So pretty interesting. The other thing I want to mention is the dredge list that came third. The dredge pilot was actually really good. It was honestly great to watch. Like very what's the word I'm looking for? Like deliberate, like not mindlessly dredging. Like a lot of times you just naturally take a draw or all this sort of stuff, which was a lot more than I recommended. Like I would have like thought. But they're also on Rubber Belt, which I also find really good. A card that's sort of been lost lately. And I'm assuming over the Circle of Landru that's in normal lists.
Yeah. It's just sort of a bit of a, I guess, older build of dredge. Still on the triple gnaw in the main, which in this event makes a lot of sense with Kuldotha being one of the top 2 most played decks. 4 Rare Revelation, which is sort of a stock sideboard card we're seeing now to fight the Glee stuff. The extra Gnaw of the Bone, 3 Coffin Purge, again, which we see pretty often, and 4 Ancient Grudge. But then 3 Mezfiends, which is a new one for me in the sideboard of Dredge. Yeah. Pretty interesting one. Again, I assume like more Glee interaction.
Yeah, if you can get them to the point where basically they sack their first spawn, then they put the counter on the guy and you respond to the trigger by raying. They can't obviously adapt anymore because it's got a counter, all that sort of stuff, and it's like a good sweet spot for Rare Revelation. Like, Mezfiend really shines in making that more relevant, I guess. Like, especially if you can just mill it and just, I'll dread return my Mezfiend back. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, you will just carry on dredging at that point.
Yeah, I guess the bonus is like duress is probably something you may want in that slot, but this is a duress that's a creature, which is sort of ideal for this deck.
Yeah. Increases the creature count and also you can hit it off Rumble. Very relevant.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to touch on the mono blue. It looks very mono blue to me, but I am not no mono blue master.
Yeah, so the fair is
the mono blue fair, yeah.
Pretty stock fair. There's 4 Snare Master sprites instead of, I think we usually see like 2. Again, seems very relevant with all the Chrysalises running about. It seems a good choice for this event. The 5th place Jungly, as we mentioned, is very similar to the 2nd place, the Wildfire build. This one is running the Crackland Shamans and one of Molten Gatekeeper, which I feel like it's just a bit of a unnecessary choice. Would be my thoughts. That's essentially instead of a 2nd Munitions. And the Cracklands are what instead of an Evil Witness and an Eviscerators. Something like that.
Yeah, something along them lines.
Otherwise, fairly similar. The 6th place again.
Touching on that Jund Glee deck, they opted for 1 star. They've cut basically the artifacts as well. They've went down, instead of having like 4 Wellsprings 2 stars, they've got 3 Wellsprings 1 star to make room for 1 Blood Fountain, 1 Life Staff, Silvok Life Staff that is, which is pretty like. I'm not saying these cards are all cards that are being featured in Glee, which is not out the ordinary, but like Life Staff obviously is just infinite life, which might be relevant. Worst case scenario, I can sack it if it's not relevant. Gives your spawns attack power to block things, I guess, as well. But yeah, interesting that's the choice. Like, obviously, I'm assuming the 1 Evo, 1 Blood Fountain gives them sort of like inevitability, in a sense. But yeah, that was.
I think that the definite downside for this list is the less snuff outs in the sideboard. Going into this top 8 and just being against a pile of Glee decks. You want 4 snuff outs. The sixth place list is the Jund Wildfire list.
Mm.
For me, there's sort of nothing massively out of the ordinary. The numbers are a bit different to what we've seen previous. There's one Nick Spawn, one Avenging Hunter, one Thorn as like a bit of a bomb package.
Yeah.
And then the removal again, 3 Toxin is a lot of Toxin for the main, with 3 Cracklands, obviously. But then a 2-2 split between Snuff Out and Cast Down as well. I guess Snuff Out in this deck can be a bit clunky to try and cast, as you have 4 swamps? Is that it?
Yeah. You've obviously got Wildfire plus Landscape as well, but yeah, essentially you've only got 4 basic swamps.
That does make sense.
The
other 2 are in the board.
The interesting thing for me is the main difference, obviously, as you say, the usual 3 Nick Spawn instead of you've got 1/1/1, but is the lack of Gartle Blast, which gives you no reach.
Oh yeah.
But you've basically got 2 Snuff Outs and an extra Toxin, extra Crackland, which I think I said to you previously while testing the normal list is even with Garth Blast in the deck felt too reliant on Toxin, and doubling down on that and losing reach. But then being more reliant on Crackland doesn't seem great to me. But obviously, must have worked out for this player. But also, Snuff Out seems awkward as hell. Like as you said, there's only 4 swamps, but also unexpected. I wouldn't be surprised if there were a lot of games with people not expecting Snuff Out.
Yeah,
because they were tapped out.
Yeah, Garth Blast is definitely a loss. Like I really like Garth Blast in these decks, specifically against like the Glee piles.
And given reach, like a lot of reach against that deck is like reasonable. Like you often hitting like weird numbers, and then can't get through any more damage. So like Garth Blast seems like massive.
But I feel like in general, like the space in these decks are so tight.
Yeah.
That I guess that's what where they've created the space. Although I feel like you could live to cut some of the artifact package, and maybe go back up on Garth Blasts, but
my main thing is probably just put the Toxin Crackland stuff in the side. Is probably where I'd be. Like, I don't think you need. I don't know. Maybe for me, you probably don't need the other bombs in the side. Like, there's another Nick Spawn, another Avenging Hunter. I'd probably just cut down at least 2 of those, and then maybe I don't know, add in at least 2 or 3 Garth Blasts somewhere. Seems reasonable. But yeah, obviously worked out for the opponent, like the opponent, the player. Yeah. But it just looks like, to me, Jund Wildfire piles are just so clunky now.
Yeah.
This doesn't look any less clunky.
The 7th place Mono Blue Terror list is the Dragon Wings list.
Yeah.
Which is cool to see. Obviously, something that cropped up a few weeks ago on Magic Online, but as stuck here and coming 7th in such a big event is sort of a real stamp of this is not a meme list.
Yeah.
Which I guess we for certain initially thought it was. It split the removal between 1 Boomerang and 1 Echoing Truth, which is something a bit different. But otherwise, yeah, one Dragon Wings, 4 Frantic Inventory, and then the 1 of Sleep of the Dead, 1 of Artful Dodge. And the 1 of Murmur Mystic in the main.
Can we also comment on the fact that they went full coward mode and didn't put AK in?
Yeah, I guess Frantic Inventory is a bit more available, I suppose.
But what happens if the verse the blue-green Turbo Fog player playing Accumulate Knowledge or the Mirror?
Yeah. But it works both ways. Like, it might have been bad for them. They might have just thought scoured 2 AKs, and then the Turbo Fog guy is just like, oh, I'll have 3 cards for my
live and die by the sword.
Yeah, but yeah, sweet to see this list. Other than that, the 8th place list, which I believe is Season of Mists, right?
Yeah.
Who we see obviously often in the challenges, playing Black Green Glee with obviously 4 Shambling Ghasts, which is sort of pioneered. I don't really think, to me, anything stands out massively from this list. I'm not sure if to you it stands out.
No,
it looks like just a really clean Black Green Glee list.
Yeah, I think this is his sort of list that has been running for a while. Like 4 safekeeping, 4 duress, like max protection, max draw spells with 4 deadlies, with 4 eviscerators in sight. And then I think the latest edition was going up to 3 Nightblades, I think, from memory. Like, he just tweaks his, like, list for certain numbers occasionally here and there. And I think the 3rd Nightblade's the latest edition, which makes sense, especially with Chamblingast. I've found having max Nightblades you possibly can have out against, like, stuff like Terra is really key, because you're never going to combo, but you can sort of force a bunch of tokens and just naturally kill them. But then also finding the win con as well when you are wanting a combo is also pretty key.
Yeah, definitely. I think, like you touched on with the max interaction with Duress, 4 Duress, 2 Mesfiend, and then max protection and max draw with the 4 Tamios and the 8 draw 2s, is the way you really need to take this black-green Glee list to get it to perform. Like the upside to this over the Jund list is just to be super consistent with your combo, or as consistent as you can be, and to make it stick every time you try and combo. Otherwise, if you're not trying to do that, you should just be playing Jund.
The one thing that I have noticed that is missing from this list is Energy Refractor, which is quite common in black green. Which it'd be interesting to see how that ended up weighing up against, like, obviously when you are, as you say, when you combo, not only making it stick, but also being able to find that win con because of. But I guess obviously with 3 Nightblades, the argument is it's less likely to be necessary. You just need to go, I need this protection, and then this mana to combo, and then combo off. So there is obviously that, and it sort of makes sense, but it is an interesting way up that obviously Season's obviously decided, or Lorenzo, I should say, has decided. Pretty cool.
Yeah. I don't know if you want to go into detail on top 16. There was nothing massive that stood out for me there.
No, I think I'm in the same boat. Like, nothing really stood out. Obviously a lot of Glee, as we've already touched on. So the black-green Glee, black deck wasn't anything spicy, right? Oh, I'm in top 32 just before we.
No, it was fairly stock. It had the bomb wise, it was the 1 Mystic, double Thorn, 1 Gurmag. Main wise, double Agony Warp. I guess it's slightly different. Only 2 Brainstorms as well. Max Snuff Outs, which is not unsurprising given the meta, and a couple of cast downs as well.
Yep. I just thought that was the only thing that, looking at our list of 9 to 16, that was the only thing that stood out of being semi-interesting was the thing, but obviously that didn't happen. Anything else before we move
on? I guess just doubling down on the coverage was fantastic. The event was really sweet to see the event at this sort of detail. I am looking forward to going when we eventually get to Paupergeddon. And hopefully we can sort of help impact and grow the UK scene to something that ends up being this sort of size.
Yeah.
Our humble 144 person event is definitely a start towards that.
Yep. 144 for our first one is definitely big news. So we'll look forward to obviously talking about that next week. So moving on to shout outs. Obviously, shout out to all the grinders is always a good one. Obviously, we only lightly touch on the challenges. Out Zero, GN, Luffy with the double win. Gali Gio, I'm going to go with. Gali,
the white weenie pilot.
Who obviously top 10 and then came second. Pretty sweet. Shout out to Discover N for his mono blueness. Bako as well. Don't know if, Nick Norman and Noob Roller and Mogged, obviously, for the Friday. Obviously, great. Just shout out, obviously. And then, obviously, shout out to Season of Mists. Obviously, a grinder, but obviously was busy playing Paupergeddon and coming 8th. Pretty sweet.
I think Callie and Kirby as well for jumping on the coverage. It was really good to have their insights on it. Obviously, they play so much Pauper and consume so much Pauper content or create so much Pauper content. They were really knowledgeable and really good to have on that coverage.
And it really shone with like the way they were talking as well. Like you could definitely you could tell that is them as a whole like entity, which is great to see. And also shout out to Kirby for not only commentating at an odd time, same with Callie, obviously it was an odd time for them, but then also still managing to pull up all the data.
Yeah, for the challenges.
Like absolutely crazy.
Grinding.
I know. Yeah, that's it. And obviously shout out to the LPI, Boost, MTG, obviously all that. Shout out to that. Keep absolutely smashing it. More because it also drives us is also a good thing. Drives us to become exactly like that as well, which is really good. I don't know about you, but I definitely want to attend a UK event with 690 players. That is for sure.
Yeah, it would be mega.
Hot takes?
Yeah, so our hot takes from last week. My first one was that wildfire piles would be seen a lot more, as we've seen quite a few starting to crop up of different variations. I've put here, does Jund Glee count as a wildfire pile if it's playing wildfire? Because we've seen a lot of that.
No.
We haven't really seen that many actually. We've seen the Mardu, which is sort of a new iteration. Obviously we've seen the Jund wildfire in Paupergeddon. But yeah, not too many outside of the Jund Glee piles. But I sort of guess if you want to play wildfire, you should probably be playing Jund Glee. So it maybe puts a bit of a damper on trying to brew something a bit weird.
Yeah. Mine was actually sort of similar, which we didn't touch on last week. I didn't realise how close ours were. Mine was that more people will experiment with wildfire/gate piles. And I guess in the same question, does the winning Paupergeddon list count? It ran 4 mana gates. That counts, right? But yeah.
I feel like, is that just to pretend you're on gates?
Yeah,
or
that's
like Black Green Fog for like turn 1.
That's what it is.
Yeah, I guess sort of in a similar vein, we didn't really see any wildfire or gates piles outside of the Glee list.
I think one core gates, which is sort of like a gate pile because it's so fringe now.
Nowadays.
I think that came like 21st in Paupergeddon, just for reference. But,
Decent result for core gate.
Yeah. Told you it was good. Just boring.
My last take from last week was that the popularity of White Weenie and Black Red Madness would increase after they both had really good weekends. It hasn't really. Like, not many people were playing either deck. Black Red Madness just didn't have any good results at all. White Weenie did, but it was both just the same pilot, and there wasn't really many other pilots. I think there was like 1 or 2 each day.
Yeah, something.
So yeah, not really increasing yet.
It has peaks and troughs as White Weenie and Madness, I think, as well. I'm surprised there wasn't as much Madness in Paupergeddon, because it was like, I think it was quite highly, I don't say highly played, but it was quite up there.
It was the deck of the event last time, wasn't it, really?
Yeah, for sure. And it got new toys since then, right? Grabbed the prize.
Yeah.
My last one was that fairies will begin to rise next week. And, well, I more sort of said
nondescript fairies.
Yeah, fairies. Fairies in general. And also rise, not really it's very open to what that actually means, But we did end up having a mono blue fair in Geddon, a mono blue fair on Saturday, right? Was it Saturday? Yeah, and then 2 blue black on Sunday.
There was a mono blue fair on Friday as well.
And a mono blue fair on Friday. But then also the mono blue fairies was the 5th most played deck on Saturday, but then also tied for 2nd most played deck on Sunday, which is pretty cool. Like, obviously it must be, it's as we've said, it's very well positioned against Glee in general, but then once it fixes the Writhing Chrysalis issue with the like Stairmasters and stuff, it's just a really well positioned deck. Would you like to move to hot takes for next week, which we've sort of tied in as our nationals hot takes?
Yeah. So my first one is that Green Red Ramp will be the most played deck at Pauper Nationals. Mainly because basically every Pauper event we go to, just loads of people just seem to be jamming Green Red Ramp. It's like Green Red Ramp or Elves is like the UK deck.
Yeah, I was gonna say my was gonna be that Elves would be the most played deck, but I was like, it's actually probably likely to be true. So I'll make a spicy one for the English meta, which is less likely. But I do think Green Red Ramp is, going back to yours, is actually a good choice. I think it's a solid deck choice. Once you fix the sideboard for your bad matchups, which coincidentally is 2 of the most played decks, but that's besides the point. It's a good, in all seasons, it's a good solid deck. Mine is that Fair will be the most played deck in Nationals. Specifically, I will actually be the script mono blue. Fair.
Okay. Yeah.
Will be the most played deck.
Again, it seems like that seems like a reasonable choice. It's sort of a bit of a deck of the people nowadays.
Yeah.
Like, it used to be the boogeyman of the format and everyone hated it, but now it's sort of like because it's not the tier 1 deck it used to be. Everyone's sort of rallied behind it for some reason.
Which is
They've
really
forgot all the
annoying.
atrocities that Spellstutter Sprite has committed.
Yeah. Exactly that.
My last one is that the top 8 will have
Ooh.
one or fewer Glee decks, which is a bold one.
That is a hot take.
I feel like people just don't like it in the UK.
See, I think the thing is with obviously the Italian Paupergeddon, the consensus we've got or understand is that everyone hates Glee and think it should be banned, but then everyone still played it. So do you think
to get it banned?
Do you think then at that point are we just gonna not play it and boycott it? To be fair, as English people, we are boycotters. We're not we're not like we'll show them and play it until it dies. Like we will get it banned. So I think we're very much like boycotters. Like if we don't like transport, we'll boycott a bus. We won't just keep going on it and like overthinking it. Do you know what I mean? That is the British people in a nutshell. So yeah, I think you're probably right. I was thinking, nah, that's crazy, but the more I think about it, the British are boycotters.
Talk into it.
Yeah, the British are boycotters for sure. So yeah. Mine is maybe a hot take, maybe not. I don't know. It's maybe a lukewarm take. Elves is gonna win nationals.
I could see it. I can definitely see like an Elves list in the top 8 easy.
Yeah, I can see it winning.
I would not be surprised.
I would be surprised it wouldn't.
If it won.
Elves is super strong, secretly.
It does tend to do quite well at like biggish UK events.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not surprising if that happens.
No, not at all.
But we'll see next week.
We will when we cover it as well, and we're also playing it. So if you are there, and want to say hi, you are welcome to say hi. We're obviously there. Be there playing, saying hi.
Ask for a sticker
if we get them. Don't promise them stickers. They might not come
hey,
in time.
I've got some stickers.
Limited stock only.
Limited edition.
Oh dear. But yeah, come say hi. Take a photo with Reese and his tash. Pointed it. But no, that is all from us. Yes?
Yeah.
Don't forget to say hi. Thank you all for listening. If you have enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your friends, your family, your local pauper community, and even your dance partner. Because I don't know why I said that, but it was okay in my head.
We're going to be dancing before Pauper Nationals on the Friday.
Yeah, that is probably it. That's all from us at Cast and Comments. Until next time, and don't forget to stay hydrated. Peace!
Bye.